Nachos amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers. It's a podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music, share an album, an album at a time every week. It's like a little book club for music. It's fun. We get to talk about music, get to experience new music. I'm Petey Rave. And here with me is my team, my squad, my crew. I've got no improv skills. I can't come up with two intros. Sorry, put behind the curtain. Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew. We've got David.
It's Hooper's birthday.
Yeah. We've got Drew.
I can't be that excited. I don't know Hooper.
Yeah. And of course, finally, we have Curley. How you doing, Curley?
How do you not know Hoops? I have no idea who Hooper is. I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Curley. How's everybody doing?
We're here to, of course, talk about music, talk about an album, and of course, it's the end of the cycle. It's the fourth episode of this cycle. So, the guest is presenting their album. Curley is presenting his album. Curley, what are you bringing forth for the class this week?
Oh, emotions. All of the emotions and feels. This is actually I feel like so everyone does like a little description of their album. I feel like I wrote this thing up on my little notepad of just it's kind of just like a fact bag of shit about this album, just because I feel like it really needs to be understood in its context as well as its musical stuff, as well as my own context for bringing it up. I actually sought out Petey because so David Bowie's Blackstar, his final album before succumbing to before giving up the ghost, as they do.
Ow, that's a way to put it. Jesus, Curly.
That's a good way to lead into the significance of this album.
So basically, fact bag quickness. This album came out January 8th, 2016, on David Bowie's birthday, 69th birthday. Album was largely recorded in secret. Everyone that was in works with it was under NDA. David Bowie actually hadn't done a live performance in a decade at this point. And I remember when it dropped, it just came up on a Google feed or some shit like that. And I hit up Discord and I was like, oh my God, a new David Bowie album. We all have to listen to this. Let's go to it. And I remember listening to it and having an opinion of it. And then, again, in context, 2 days later after it's released, David Bowie, it was announced that he had died and passed from liver cancer, which set the context of the album in a much different light. And I wanted to explore that here with you guys. I think when it first came out, I definitely like revisited the album based on my different opinions of things, and all of a sudden had a different take on it. But I was also working through, your natural grief that happens when someone that you idolized your entire life passes. And I don't think I really talked about it with anyone. And now we're here. I mean, over 3 years later. And it was probably about a month ago, maybe like a couple of weeks ago, where I was just in Amazon Music, play me whatever you think I want to hear moment, and one of the songs from this album came up, and I was like, wow, wonder what's Petey's doing, because I would love to talk about this on a podcast, and that kind of sent me down the spiral of coming back on the show, and thank you for providing this avenue, Pete, and Drew.
I'm glad. If this podcast serves no other purpose, let it serve the purpose of catharsis over the loss of musical artists. It's not the first time we've done that, and it won't be the last. Rest in peace, Junghan.
And Aretha Franklin.
Yes.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about some expectations. David, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I expected something obtuse, but I'm okay with that because I like obtuse. I understood the significance of this album for Mr. Bowie. I had not listened to it, mostly just because it had not been in my periphery. It just wasn't on my radar. But I understood the significance of it. I understood the weight it held. And I just generally expected the music to be, sorry, Petey, interesting and enjoyable.
Drew, what were your expectations coming into this?
As I alluded to on the last episode, it's the music on this album I mostly avoided because I knew that it was Bowie dealing with his own mortality and knowing what he knew that we did not. And it was something that, knowing how David Bowie can write songs and albums and create imagery, I wasn't necessarily looking to go into this because I knew how sad it would be. So I went into this knowing, hey, I had to do this eventually, so might as well do it for the internet.
Sorry to bring you down this path.
It's fine.
It's for the content, Drew.
I've done worse things on Record Breakers. I had to listen to Glassjaw. So
take a drink, everybody.
Yes.
Oh shit! It's my call.
Those of you playing Record Breakers bingo.
Yeah. Curley gets drunk during the show. What? Who?
We mentioned Glassjaw.
But yeah. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know what exactly to expect coming to this. I knew it was going to be interesting. I knew it was going to be like it's going to be a creative. It's going to be a rock star with full, creative control over his own thing, going all out. And I knew it was going to be sad. Or it's going to be contemplative, I should say. It's going to be
there
contemplative. And morbid, I would say, probably, at least if you're musically and in the background. But I wasn't quite sure what to expect, so I'm looking forward to talking about what was here. Curley, how would you describe this album musically? What would be the themes and elements that you bring up?
Well, before I do that, I do want to. I think this goes with both questions of what we just previously talked about, and what you're asking now. I have two blurbs here that are two things that I actually have these running documents every now when I think there's something I want to like content produce to, and that could just mean like a tweet that I want to put out, like because I was having emotions when this came out, and I don't even know where I pulled these from, but I have them in my archive of crap. And one of them was before David Bowie had passed, and one right afterwards. And so the beforehands in regards to expectations was a review, I think, from somewhere that was like, because everyone rushes to review the album when it first comes out, especially a David Bowie fucking album that has dropped. It says it contains several total shifts in instrumentation and vocalization, but whilst images of death crop up repeatedly, the lyrics are obtruse and there are no obvious clues to any story unifying the fragments. And it's like, okay. And then you realize 2 days later that David Bowie had liver cancer for a decade and was trying to survive.
The story is literally him.
Yeah. And it's like all the reviewers
is his body.
This is the most amazing, in my opinion, it was like one day, boom, here's all these reviews from all these big deal people. And then it was like, boom, we all have to edit and update our review because holy shit. Now we have the context of it. And so I have this blurb here that goes
worst context imaginable.
So I just listened to the entire album and I feel like I just witnessed Bowie giving his eulogy to his life, which I think is the key determining theme is of course this is the most David Bowie way to go out, yo. Write your own eulogy, give a present to the people, contemplate and really not even in a fancy you already kind of predetermine what someone would say about death, because everyone fears death, everyone has an idea of an afterlife of some kind or whatever, be that even not. People have those same themes that run throughout it, but David Bowie, just like I've expressed here with the reason I like Tim Kosher is he in this album brings up those thoughts that you don't like to even admit to yourself, kind of thing, especially from a stardom standpoint. And he brings them up hard, and he brings them up without any fuck, man, this is no judgment, whatever. This is how I feel, and this is how it feels, and who knows what's out there and whatever. And I just love the way I've listened to this album so many times since then, and every time I'm discovering something new about myself or about what I think about music or art and people, and I love what David Bowie's done with this place, this whole thing.
Yeah. David, how would you describe this album musically?
In terms of the overall sound and audio presentation of the album, I found this to be pretty easy to jump into for me personally, just as an overall musical listen. The instrumentation I found very appealing. In the same way, this might sound a little crazy, but if you know me, you know how on brand this is. In the instrumentation where the guitars often took a backseat to the saxophone, it was reminiscent to 1970s King Crimson, which I really appreciated. Also, in terms of the more modern electronic and sometimes hip-hop influences, there was a little bit of latter Peter Gabriel later on in the 1990s, which I really, really appreciate. That more not quite art rock, not quite pop, dark electronic influenced kind of music. So contemporaries, you could say, of David Bowie, Peter Gabriel, and Robert Fripp of King Crimson. So I found the actual music itself to be pretty enjoyable. I found this to be a pretty enjoyable listen overall, just as a musical package standing alone. The message was obvious. I am the lyric guy on the Record Breakers podcast. I am someone that does follow along with the lyrics pretty intently with everything we listen to. And the message was fairly clear. And given the context, I think Curley put it best in saying that this was David Bowie delivering almost a going away present of sorts to the world, giving a eulogy for his life, telling his own story, and going out on his own terms. And in the words of Michael Mendoza, yipes, you got to respect it. And I love it.
Thank you for saying that. I really do love that going out on his own terms. I feel like that, whether he did it or not, or whatever, whether he was afraid or not, I think definitely no one can admit that otherwise, that he did it the Bowie way, yo. Like,
yeah. Yeah. Drew, how would you describe this musically? What would be the themes, elements?
The great thing about this record to me was Bowie's sort of known for his like 70s, 80s, like the rocker, like more of a rocker type sound, where this is decidedly on rock and roll. Like this is not your Ziggy Stardust stuff coming out. This is decidedly away from that. It is more jazzy. And then researching this and figuring out he was listening to like a lot of To Pimp a Butterfly and like trip hop stuff is like, that makes a surprising amount of sense. Like hearing this record.
There's a lot of trip hop on this. There's a lot.
Yeah, like just the jazziness of it, the way the saxes come in, the way the lower register plays into it, was just astounding. And then knowing where this came from, right, where his mindset was, and having his voice, which in some of the stuff that was more of it like art rock, like conceptual side, and he could dip into that haunting vocal, and hearing him do it so well here was chilling in ways. But yeah, the idea that he went out on his own terms. He was an artist. Like he was a Renaissance type man. Like that was sort of what he did. He dabbled in a lot of different types of art, and he was good at all of them. It was something that, of course, he was going to Like you get just enough time that it's like, you know what? No, I'm gonna leave like one more thing. I'm gonna say my piece unto the world before I go out. And 2 days later, like he was able to see people, like Curley said, saying like, this is something like he keeps diving into like these themes of like death and afterlife and like life in general and legends and legacies, but there's no through line. It seems sort of disconnected from anything else, like what's going on. And he saw people get it and saw people like did get to enjoy it, and like almost like he was happy with it, and that was it. And he's like, all right, let's see what's next, sort of thing. Like, is there something? And if there is, like, where am I going? Like, and just shuffling off the mortal coil, as it were. And I think there's a beauty in that, in saying your piece unto the world, as big of a, like, as popular of a human being as Bowie was, and being able to have that presence of mind to do one last thing to let your fans know, like, hey, like, I've been dealing with it. I'm okay now. Here you go. Yeah. And so just have that be it was beautiful.
Like a lot of the stuff that comes out in the opening track, Blackstar, is very much like, there will be more. There was before me. There will be these people. And also, don't worship everyone so much. Like, don't worry about it. Like, he's like giving a lesson. He's like he's everyone's biggest dad, right? Like, he's just like, I'm a big star. I'm not only going to give you words of wisdom, but I'm going to entertain you at the same time. And I'm also going to give you a fucking advice. Like, boom, all at once in a 7-track album. Like,
yeah. Let's talk about some of the tracks, Curly. What would be some of the key tracks? And you touched on the opening track right there. What would be some of the key tracks?
All right, let's break into my document here. So, one of the things I wanted to say very quickly is that you were mentioning DJM, the 70s influence or whatever and stuff that he was going back to. A lot of reviewers that I read about it stuff when I was trying to deep dive this originally. This is before even doing the show. Like, I guess like the harmonica that's used in one of the final tracks is like a sample from one of his first big songs of a man going and like starting his life anew in a career in the world and stuff like that. Like, I put a note here that like David Bowie is very, very obviously bookending his career in regards to like let's go back to where we started kind of thing. And I love that. I feel like, and this just might be that I'm susceptible to the singles and whatever, but the Lazarus was a big track for me. That's kind of the one. Actually, that Lazarus is the track that spawned me to contact Petey about coming on the show. Is the one that played in my bathroom while I was listening to Amazon Music. And some of the lyrics there are, look up here, I'm in heaven. I've got scars that can't be seen. And it's like, fuck you, David Bowie. Fuck you. Fuck you, David Bowie. And I wrote here this, the video contains several, if you ever seen the video, there's a video to Lazarus, by the way, which came out again before he died, but it's super like hard to watch because the video contains several telling morbid images: a hospital bed, a suspiciously coffin-like wardrobe, and David Bowie appearing frail in the bed, with his eyes blinded or blindfolded. And I wrote here, it's supremely artistic and supremely Bowie at that point. The other track that I wanted to talk about was I Can't Give Everything Away, which I think is the final one on the album, where he does have the lines over and over again where I can't give everything, and then he lingers on the word away, like almost like he's floating out into space, like you would, Spaceman Bowie. And he has the lines here: seeing more and feeling less, saying no but meaning yes. This is all I ever meant. That's the message that I've sent. And that got to me pretty hard.
Yeah. David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Every track had a moment for me. Whether it was a couple of seconds or a few measures, every song had moments. So I'm just going to go ahead and recommend the entire album in that regard. Girl Loves Me is a hell of a song. I respect for... It was kind of offbeat, but I really, really respected it. I just dug the hell out of it. Also, the chorus on that one is just total earworm. I love what he's doing with his voice. The falsetto on that one, I absolutely love that one. The second half of "'Tis a Pity She Was a Whore" was really good. Just a really good instrumental breakdown. Like I said earlier, kind of the allusion to old King Crimson, that instrumentation with the kind of going all over the place with the saxophone. It's there. Also, a really cool song, "Sue" or "In a Season of Crime." I enjoyed that one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind if I give context a little bit? So both those songs were originally before they got used for it were commissioned for a play, an off-Broadway play, and they were written for a little known. The David Bowie's first acting role was A Man Who Fell to Earth. And it's a movie about an extraterrestrial who's on a planet with his family who's dying of, like, there's no water on the planet anymore. And he gets sent as an envoy to Earth and then gets caught up in the biz and becomes like just another like media mogul and decides to stay there and forget about his family. And it's a slow, there's all this stuff about David Bowie being an alien, and he plays himself, and it's amazing. It's like a 3.5 hour movie of very like, hard to swallow metaphors and whatnot, but it's amazing. But the play that he commissioned, or that got commissioned for these, was about that alien creature from that story coming back to Earth 30 years later from now. And that was, some of these songs were originally going to be used for that, or I think they did get used for that, and then they got put into the album at that point. So just throwing that out there.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Blackstar is 9 minutes and 57 seconds that fucking goes places, man.
It stays in your head too, right?
Like it's that. Again, the trip hop influences, the spaciness of it, the sax coming in at top, like the sax punctuating times was great. It sets a mood for the album perfectly. Bowie has decided, like, he's knowing, like, Bowie's sort of knowing this is his swan song, like, is gonna go out the way he came in, which is kind of batshit insane, completely weird, but making you sort of think about music in a different light. And I think that's kind of cool. Lazarus, the dreamy soundscape, the floating through space before the first line even hits. And the first line being an allusion to Bowie knowing, right? Like, he knew. Mm-hmm. And he painted that picture in any medium. And highlighting one more song and highlighting the end with "I Can't Give Everything Away," listening to those lyrics, it's like, we hear you, man. Like, yeah. We fucking hear you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just can't be said enough that there's a moment in every song that just like engages you so deeply, and like from Blackstar all the way through to all the way through to the end. It's just captivating in so many ways. And, all the moments in that each of those tracks are just like overwhelming. It's so there's so many different moments, yeah. And from like those little moments, like the hooks into "To the Pitch She Was a Whore," till like all those moments in Lazarus that really kind of captivate the like Curley touched upon those, just on the lyrical content of like him just like that just just get you in so many ways. It's just so well written in so many respects. But let's bring it back around the horn and talk about some conclusive thoughts. David, how would you conclude on this album as a whole?
The album as a standalone is a really enjoyable listen just to chill out on the couch. And that's what I ended up doing the second time around. I just ended up sitting on the couch with the lyrics up on my phone and just going through them. And it was really cool to just chill out and drift off. With the entire context, I was reminded of Freddie Mercury and the 1990 Queen album Innuendo. Most specifically, the final track on that album, The Show Must Go On, where the story of that song was, at the time, Freddie Mercury's health was really starting to take a turn for the worst. But he told the other members of the band, we still have one song left, and I'm going to fucking do it. And he killed it, because that song is spectacular. This album is genuinely brilliant. It is creative. It is challenging. It is, again, PD, sorry, really interesting. And it's just an enjoyable listen. Everything else aside, it's just a really good listen from front to back.
Yeah. Drew, how would you how would you conclude on this album?
This album is dense. Musically, lyrically, it's just a very, very dense album. Like I said, Bowie was an artist, a Renaissance man of sorts. And just a crazy persona, whether it be his fashion, his music, like however he presented himself was always something that was calculated. Up until the point, like Curley said, no one knew that this was a thing until it wasn't anymore. Nobody in the public knew that the cancer was a thing until it wasn't. And that just goes to show that, like, Bowie had a sense of his public persona up until the end and wanted to present himself in an artistic way from front to back, and he did. And I think that's commendable for the person. The album itself is insanely deep. It isn't, for those who dive into music in the weird ways that some of us do, especially some of us here on the panel do from time to time, the progginess and the jazziness that we sometimes listen to, the musical density does not come as maybe a surprise. If all you listen to is stuff like the last album that we listened to, this might be a bit heady, but I think it's worth a listen for everybody, if only to hear how one man can deal with his own mortality in such a beautiful way.
Yeah. It is an engaging album just on any level. And if, even like I said, it's a worth a listen for everyone, even if it's not your style and might be too dense for you, or it might be a bit denser than what you might be used to. It's good. At the very least, good to heat your vegetables. But these are good vegetables, and they're tasty. And they're really well made, and they're good.
I say it was delicious.
Yes,
damn
exactly.
delicious.
And you know what? And here's the thing. And I say that as a person who likes vegetables, because you know what, vegetables are good and tasty and fun, especially when they're crispy and have the right seasoning.
Season your food, people. Season your food.
And this has the right seasoning, and it's so well made and so well presented, and it's such a fantastic dive into David Bowie's thought process and mind. It's so well made, like, and we talked about it, we did like the progginess, the jazziness, like there are those like trip hop influences, hip hop influences in there that you realize, of course, but Bowie's hip to all that, like that's who he is, that's who he was. And it works so well, and it works so well in music, and it works so well just as an oral experience. It's just so good. Curley, how would you conclude on this album as a whole?
Emotions, all of the emotions. I'm just gonna throw a bunch of more facts at people at this point for my conclusion of this. So just I left these out because I wanted people to find their own like information. And let you guys have your own words of it, but like basically the co-producer Visconti, he described this album as Bowie's intended swan song and as a parting gift, quote unquote, for his fans before his death. On top of that, just to bring up some other things about the musical stuff, Visconti, the same his co-producer, the guy he set up all this stuff with, said that during that time period we were listening to a lot of Kendrick Lamar, which is why he was on my brain for the previous episode. He's like, we wound up nothing like that, but we love the fact that Kendrick was so open-minded. The goal in many, 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 many ways was to avoid rock and roll. And he wanted to make some kind of, he wanted to make something fresh and interesting that people could stick with for a while. During my deep dive, I started to look at a bunch of stuff about David Bowie's life, and I didn't realize and now it makes sense in regarding to a lot of his lyrics over time, that he was a big subscriber to the concept of Carl Jung's collective unconscious. He believed in a phantasm ether of knowledge that we as human beings tap into, kind of thing. And on top of that, he also believed that he might be an extraterrestrial visitor to Earth from a home that seemed to exist on a higher level of consciousness and morality. And he may be continuing the bit to the end, alluding that the unspecified home unto which he is returning to suggests that as brilliant as he was on Earth, he'll have to account for his misdeeds and ask forgiveness when he gets there. I love that this album serves so many purposes, not only for Bowie, but for his fans and for people and for generations coming, that like he deals with the fate of dying. He deals with his own stardom. He deals with what it means to have an afterlife. He deals with what it means to be a good person, what it means to have put good in the world when you have also done sins and made people's lives bad. He tackles all of this in 7 fucking songs while he's going to die 2 days later. Like, it's like there's so much there that, like, I listened to this episode or this whole thing from, again, my Echo device while laying in a bathtub for some fucking reason. And I just sat there, like, chilled out. Like, the DGM, you're talking about, like, chilling out on a couch. I was in a fucking tub that I intended to be in for, like, 5 to 10 minutes. And I was there for, like, an hour just re-listening to everything, being like, let this flow over me while I'm in a super relaxed state. Yeah. It was, to quote myself earlier, supremely Bowie and supremely amazing. Like, I loved everything about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those are our thoughts on the album. Now we get to the main event of the evening. We get to the moment we've all been waiting for. We get to our haiku reviews, where we oversimplify things into a poetic form, and it's fun. Let's get to it. David, what is your haiku?
Esoteric swan song. Creative juggernaut. This brilliant farewell.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what is your haiku?
Bowie will always be an inspiration for art, music, and life.
Mm-hmm. My haiku: an epic swan song. Goodbye to a true legend, made masterfully. And finally, Curley, what is your haiku?
You left us so young, from ground control to Blackstar, my goblin king, heart.
Yes. Yeah, that wraps it up for our thoughts on David Bowie's Blackstar. You can, of course, find it all on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers the home game. Do your due diligence and your due diligence. Before we talk about the upcoming episode, Curley, what do you got going on in the world? What do you want to send people to?
Listen, my current status is I just got through this without crying, so I'm happy, okay? But no, if you want to follow my shit, I do live video game streams on twitch.tv/drunkkidsgaming or dkgtv.com. We'll get you to all the links. I am going to be starting, as of tomorrow, my Mario Marathon, or was what I'm calling it, Marchio Mariothon. It's going to be every Mario game that's like a static, normal Mario game. That's not a tennis game or a Dr. Mario game. And I'm going to play them all. It's probably going to take me until October to finish them all. So good luck with that. Me.
So that
Super
will
Dram
be
World.
tomorrow as of this recording. So it's just kind of like, but he should be going on as you are listening to this a couple of weeks from now, I think.
Continuity.
Yeah.
Continuity.
I'd like to stock up on episodes. It's safe.
Smart.
This ain't topical. Who cares?
That's my problem with my podcasts.
Yes.
DGM made a reference to Hooper's birthday being today.
Yes.
Would like to point out.
Yeah. But that's the fun part.
They're recording.
That's the fun part. Because right now, that's the fun part. Speaking of future episodes and the future, next week's episode likely will be, I guess, I think we're going to try to make it work out that we're going to have returning the one and only Patrick Swagger. Is going to be in the fourth chair.
Should I, Petey? I mean,
no,
hey,
we're gonna.
It's been great. It's been great. Like,
No, we're
Petey,
gonna have him
it's
here.
been great. Drew,
You stay over there.
you're awesome. Guys, it's been a pleasure. But Patrick's back. I understand. It's cool. It's cool. Thank you guys, everybody. DeltaJulietMike.com. Patrick, love you. Shout out to Tess. You're great. Go ahead.
No, it's gonna be you. It's gonna be him down here where Curley is, and you'll stay over there.
Okay.
And you're gonna be on together. And it's gonna be my album. Well, actually, it's not going to be him down there. It's actually going to be something a little bit more fun because I will probably be, if all things work out, actually in Patrick's house, and we're going to do some fun stuff. But it'll be all the four of us.
That sounds complicated. Are you sure you don't need me to go?
We've got phones. I've got a voice recorder, and we're going to make it all work out. We'll learn some multicam editing. That being said, the important thing is the album. And this is going to be a fun album because this is going to be a fun discussion about things like metal riffs, the loudness war, and video games. Because we're going to be listening to the Guitar Hero 3 mix of Metallica's Death Magnetic.
Ooh.
So look
the
forward
Guitar
to
Hero
that.
mix?
Yes, specifically the Guitar
see.
Hero.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can get that easily?
That's
Yes,
a place.
I have it. Yes.
No, you can't, Drew. No, you can't. Leave me. I tried.
That being said, I believe all the digital versions of that album are now the new properly mixed iTunes version. So if you at home go ahead and listen to the Spotify version, which I think is going to be like that, or the iTunes version, it's going to be non-wall of sound, overcompressed, similar to the fun of that version. But we're going to be talking about the Guitar Hero version just for the fun discussion of it all. But that being said, that'll be next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Drew is at XDruciferX. I'm Curley is at Curley, or DKGTV.com. Don't forget that. I'm at PD Rave. The show is at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com if you want to email us. Rebelly.net for this and other shows. Rebelly TV on YouTube and other places. Subscribe, like, share, give us reviews. Give us some feedback. Let us know what we're doing. Let us know what you think of the music. Do all the things. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Oh, Stephen Talib Kweli, our Blackstar. Listen to it. It's one of the greatest hip hop albums ever.
It's so good.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.